You don't frighten me. I've got a lodger who's as big as the two of you put together. And he'll be home at any time.
Shut up, you old bag. You said, well, come on, what you gonna do? Give it a kiss of light or something?
Difficult.
Well, nigh on impossible, but Cathy's determined to go on visiting her.
Yes, but what's the point of that if Iris won't talk to her? She's a strange mixture, that girl. I've seen signs now and again of a sensitivity, caring. Then she goes and blots it all out by doing something like that to Arthur Brownlow.
Yes, and she's suffering for it.
Yes, for the next 3 months.
I didn't mean the sentence, though that hit her, of course, but it's as if there was something inevitable about it all. From the first glimmer of an idea until she stood in that dock, it was as though she had to go through with it.
Yet she knew all the odds were stacked against her.
Well, we tried to talk her out of it, didn't we? And Kath more than anyone. But she wouldn't give in. She was frightened going to that court. Not frightened of the truth itself, but frightened she might crack under pressure.
And she did.
Do you know, I've wondered since what might have happened had she been able to hang on.
Well, they had certainly enough circumstantial evidence to convict Arthur Brownlow, but do you think she would have stood by and seen him go to prison?
I just don't know. She might well have. She was so entrenched, there was no way out.
Can you put it all down to her childhood, do you think? No being shunted around, unwanted, crying out to be loved?
Perhaps she cried for so long without getting an answer that when one eventually came, she didn't know how to accept it. I don't know. Anyway, I am going to see her today.
Oh.
Put in some more spade work, I suppose you could call it.
When will she be back? I see. Well, I'll be here at the coach house all afternoon. She can ring me here. Yeah, bye.
Trouble at mill?
My aunt in Guernsey must speak to me urgently. She's probably mislaid her spectacles. What are you doing here? I thought you were on duty.
Yeah, I've just popped back for a bit of a chat.
Oh, what about as if I didn't know?
Things are boiling over, Dad. Well, I just wondered whether...
Whether I've decided about your £4,000. Well, the answer is no. I haven't decided.
You mean you don't want to know?
I didn't say that. Unlike you, Chris, I have to think before I invest good money.
Dad, I've got to know today.
Have you? Why?
Johnny's been to London. He needs a definite yes or no.
Well, you can wait 24 hours.
Dad, you just don't understand.
I understand very well. Now, don't push me. I'll make up my mind in my own good time. I'm thinking about your best interests as well as my own.
Yeah, I'm sure you are, yeah.
You better get back to work.
Suppose that's all you're doing, is it?
But of course.
Told him not to waste his hard-earned bread, eh?
He's done enough for you, Chris. Too much.
Oh, yeah. He got me this fantastic job in this crummy motel. Groomed me for stardom in the catering business. Made me what I am today, which isn't a hell of a lot. What else is new?
Listen, he paid your fines. Got you out of an Algerian prison.
Well, that was his mistake, wasn't it?
He loves you, Chris.
No, you're wrong. He didn't love me. He owns me.
The wicked villains. Especially the older one, Harry.
Harry. Oh, Mrs. Mortimer.
Came as soon as I could. Mrs. Owen rang me from the surgery. Oh, I am sorry.
It's very kind of you to come, but I don't want anybody to see me looking like this.
Did they break in?
No, I let them in. Well, they said they were from the electricity.
Did they show any identification?
I didn't ask. It never occurred to me.
It will next time. We'll have to get a stronger lock and a chain on that door. And you should never open the door or take that chain off until you know who it is.
Look, I better go and have a look round. You know, will you stay until I come back?
Yes, yes.
Only she gets a bit frightened.
That's understandable.
The one named Harry, Mrs. Mortimer. I'll give him Harry if I find him.
But I wouldn't like to be Harry if Benny finds him before the police do. Have you told them yet?
Dr. Butterworth said he would report it.
Did they take anything?
£3.
£3. Well, when Benny comes back, I'll phone the police myself.
I don't want to think about it anymore. But I can't think about anything else.
They'll probably send a social worker round.
A social worker?
Well, they work very closely with the police on occasions like this.
What can a social worker do?
Oh, help in all sorts of ways. Talk about it. That'll help.
Perhaps. I don't think I'll be able to come into the motel for a few days at least.
Of course not.
And the girls, don't let them come. It was good of you to come. But I don't want anybody seeing me like this.
Why does it always have to happen? I leave the room for 2 minutes and you and Chris are brawling like a couple of fishwives.
We weren't brawling, we were talking.
Oh, I see. And suddenly he gets up and slams the door. Is that it? Well, is it?
Stop shouting, David.
I want an answer.
Well, you won't get one if you shout. Now, just calm down and we can start behaving like civilized human beings.
But I'm waiting.
Oh, I'm sorry, David. I can't take this. I refuse to be bullied.
And I refuse to be buffeted about between you and my son.
Oh, really? I thought I was the one in
Well,
that position.
think what you like. I've had just about enough of this.
Of what?
What are you talking about?
Enough of what? It has nothing to do with Chris, has
What
it?
hasn't?
This row, all these disagreements and arguments we've been having for the past few weeks, they're all to do with one thing, Eddie Lee.
I was discussing what happened in this room 10 minutes ago. I never mentioned Eddie Lee.
Nobody's in the back of your mind, and it's been there ever since I told you about him.
Don't talk rubbish.
It's true. I can hear it in every cutting remark you say to me, the way you look at me. And you're suspicious of him.
I wasn't aware of that. I mean, he stayed here a few nights, had a few glasses of whiskey, told you the story of his boyhood adventures. Now, what's there to be suspicious about? It happens all the time.
It's not funny, David.
No, I didn't think it was. Look, if there are to be further revelations in the saga of Eddie Lee, do you think you'd pour me another drink? David Hunter. Oh, yes, sonny. Now, what's all the fuss about? Well, when did this happen? Yes, I think I'd better. Now, don't worry, I'll sort it all out. Yes. Bye. Oh, thank you. Now, what were you protesting about?
We're going to have to talk about Eddie Lee.
Really? Why?
Because I don't want to carry on the way we have been. I want everything out in the open once and for all.
Well, I'm afraid that will have to wait. My aunt wants me to go to Guernsey tonight, so I'll just pack my bag.
It won't wait. It's destroying us. It's wrecking our marriage.
Why should it do that? You told me that nothing happened between you. I believe you.
No, you don't. Not in your mind. You're convinced that he and I went to bed together.
No, I'm not, but you're doing your best to make me change my mind.
Me?
Lest you lie to me, hide the truth. Now it seems you can't think about anything else. Well, I'm sorry I haven't time to worry about your feelings of guilt.
Dad? What are you doing here all of a sudden?
I have to go to Guernsey. I'm taking the late plane.
Tonight? What is it, panic station?
Nothing I can't cope with, but it could mean I'll be away for quite a while.
Oh, well then...
Exactly. What about your money? I've given it some thought, and I'm afraid it's not for me.
Oh.
Well, it's not the sort of thing that I'd like to invest money in.
Right. Well, that's the good news. What's the bad news?
The bad is that I've spoken to my bank manager, and he's prepared to make you a loan to the tune of £5,000.
Oh, what?
Now, wait a minute before you start jumping for joy.
There are strings.
Now, hang about and listen.
You got it, Dad.
You've made certain commitments to the motel, and to me, incidentally. Now, I want those commitments carried out.
Yeah,
and now, don't just shrug it off, Chris. I want you to understand what I'm asking. The motel first, the music business second.
Right. Don't worry, Dad. I'll speak to Johnny, no problem. Hey. Thanks a lot. Hiya, Toots.
David, I thought you were taking the afternoon off. Problems, I suppose you've heard about Doris.
Jill just told me.
She's certainly going to need some time off.
And we're already short of staff.
Exactly. No way Shuey can manage. Well, I'll have to take over as vegetable chef for the time being.
Well, I'm afraid I've some bad news for you, Meg. I have to go to Guernsey tonight.
You've what?
I'm sorry, my aunt rang. There's a crisis. I have to go and sort it out.
Have you indeed? What about the crisis here?
Wait a minute. This thing hit me out of the blue. I'm afraid I don't have a choice.
That is precisely what you do have, David.
Is that supposed to be some sort of ultimatum?
If you like to look at it that way, yes. I'm sorry, David, but it looks very much as though you and I have come to the parting of the ways.
Who is it?
Barbara?
Just a minute. Well, I hardly expected to see you tonight, Barbara. What's wrong?
What did you say to David before I came home, Jimmy?
Well, we talked about the book and work in the main, although I must admit we were saying more than the actual words, if you know what I mean. And I said I thought this book marked the beginning of a new departure for you.
Yes, and?
And then just as you came in, I said the book might be finished, but something else is just beginning, and we both know it.
How dare you? How could you have done that, Jimmy? It was the height of irresponsibility to confront David with what your idea of our relationship is. I mean, did you know that I wasn't at the coach house when you called? And that David was on his own?
Yes.
And you went blundering in without consulting me first?
Not blundering, no. Someone has to tell him.
Tell him what? I've told you a dozen times that I love him and he loves me.
I don't believe that, and neither do you, and saying it 100 times won't make it true. David's never had your capacity for love. And what love you've shown him has been smothered by neglect and other things.
You're wrong.
Oh, God, why do we have to go over the same thing time and time again? I've said it before in this room. You have to face up to the fact that we still love each other. We do. And we both know it. And I'm not going to let you get away from me for a second time.
Back already. James all right?
You don't seem very worried at the thought of my going to see him this late.
Well, what would worrying change? We've been spending 8 hours a day alone with him in his room. It's not very logical to worry about a half-hour visit now.
Nice to know that you care.
If you don't know how I feel about you, acting the jealous husband won't make you understand.
And that doesn't give the impression of a caring one.
We all have our own ways of coping with tension. Mine's to work, preferably with figures. They're precise and constant. I made some fresh coffee. There's half a pot left.
Thanks.
I do know how you feel about Chris, but I would appreciate it if you'd have a look at these figures.
Are you serious?
Completely. I have a particular reason for asking. Please.
All right.
It's only a preliminary survey. It's a breakdown of the figures for the last 6 years.
Well, that's not so bad, is it? I mean, with 2 experienced people running the firm.
Well, it seems to me that a partnership would yield over a year about the same as putting the money into the American money market, for instance. That's taking into account the different tax structures, of course.
Of course.
Chris has got himself a very fair offer.
No doubt he charmed himself into that, all right. Oh, he's the expert at being the 24-carat, clean-cut, enterprising young man of the future. It's only when he starts running anything that the solid gold starts leaving green marks on everything. Well, now I've seen the figures. What now?
I'm going to give Chris the money to buy the partnership. Time's running out. He'll need it quite soon.
I know that either of us can sign checks on our joint account. But you wouldn't do that, would you? Give the money without my agreement?
No, of course I wouldn't. If necessary, I'll raise the money on my own.
It will be necessary. And as you say, you're on your own. Good night, David.
Hello. May I speak to J. Henry Pollard, please?
So you decided to give your son the money for the partnership. Good for you. I'm sure it'll be an excellent investment. But you didn't ask to see me simply to get my approbation. You want me to put up the money.
No. No, I can raise that without much difficulty. No, I will be in a bit of a hurry. It's a proposition I have to put to you that's rather more long-term and certainly rather bigger.
Yes?
I'm going to wind up my interest in the Crossroads motel. I'm looking for a buyer. Someone prepared to take over the entire operation at the end of the next financial year, April. Would you be interested in adding the Crossroads motel to your financial and catering group?
I won't shilly-shally, David. That's not my line. On the face of it, your proposition interests me. How soon can you let me have the figures?
Today? I'll bring the file over to your chalet myself.
Fine. How does Meg feel about this?
She doesn't know yet.
You expect to get a good price from me, David?
I'll get every last penny the place is worth. Otherwise, there'll be no sale. The price is in the file. It's fair and non-negotiable.
If it's fair, then I'll be willing to pay.
Then we'll have no arguments.
Well, we might have a slight difference of opinion as to the actual worth of the motel. To get back to Meg.
Well, she'll probably make a fuss at first. But once she gets used to the idea, she'll probably enjoy the change.
Supposing she doesn't want to change and decides to stop the sale?
She can't. I'm the majority shareholder. If I decide to sell, nobody can do a thing about it.